Hi, I'm Dean Sage.
And I'm Jack Curvin.
And this is Show Me Your Deck,
a podcast where we explore the intersections of oracles and chakras,
using our original decks to create new insights. Well, here we are with episode 29.
I know, and I'm right about to interrupt some. Okay, the kitten magic interrupted itself.
I don't know if my spouse is going to wake up while we're recording this and let the little ones out, but we have been letting them out for like longer and longer periods of time. Just letting the other older cats kind of get used to having them in their space. Sugar just wants to play with everyone and like just bowls over our biggest cat, Trixie, who's kind of a gentle giant, but even she's like, no, she like hisses and smacks him. and then Sugar runs away.
Personal boundaries.
And then tries it again like 5 minutes later.
Sure.
Katya's more curmudgeon-y, so the Sugar doesn't always try it with her, but I've seen Sugar like absolutely tackle Katya, and I'm like, how did you come out of that without getting scratched?
Oh, bebes.
Yes.
It's interesting. I just realized something. I have 4 decks and 1 cat, but you have 4 cats and 1 deck.
Yeah.
How funny.
Yes, intersections. Those are all sorts of intersections. Shall we roll and go?
Let's roll and go. Tetrahedron magic. Deck number 4. This is the Perceptions, which is the haiku, and we're going to be looking at card number 43, which I think is going to be the cathedral, isn't it?
Is it really?
No, I'm wrong. Are you ready? Yep. This is where the crown intersects with itself.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So purple on purple, crown on crown, ether on ether. Galaxies collide, never touching. I am I? Zero holds Google.
Okay.
We've had this one before because you didn't understand what I meant by Google. It's a 1 followed by 100 zeros.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember when we had it before. It's
been a hot minute.
Yeah.
This is episode 29, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while. One more time. Galaxies collide, never touching. I am I? Zero holds Google.
All right. Well, starting up the crown.
Starting at the heights of the heights.
The crown intersecting the crown. This is an interesting conception, right? Because a lot of the books that I've seen likes to draw the crown just above the head, so it's not like actually physically in the body, just like the roots just below the hips. Where what is that? When the hips meet,
right between the sits bones.
Thank you. I was like, what's it called when the hip bones meet? What's that area?
When you're sitting down, the 2 little nodules you feel underneath yourself, those are the sits bones. And the base chakra is right in between those 2 little bumps.
I've seen it drawn as lower, like slightly outside the body, which is kind of interesting because you think about like being pulled, right? Being pulled down and being pulled up. The energy kind of pulls us in the different directions. So this is truly, I think, this to me, I'm picturing like something swirling above the head as you read this haiku. What's the image for it?
2 galaxies colliding.
Literally.
Well, in the book, the image is from one of our telescopes, whichever one, showing the intersection of 2 galaxies.
Gotcha. Which is a fascinating million-year process.
Mm-hmm. I remember this conversation now when this came up before. We were talking about the way in which the scale of time and space makes it so that if you were actually experiencing it, you would never know it was happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because that's the sense of scale that this is talking about.
Something truly
reaching out towards eternity, and the idea that we've had this discussion that you are one drop in a sea of water and you're separated from it for a moment. And that in terms of the scale of intergalactic space and time, when these 2 galaxies do intersect, it will be very rare if 2 stars ever actually collide.
Exactly. Yeah. or if planets are ripped away from their orbits or something.
Yeah, like there'd be almost no stars thrown out. There'd be almost no collisions of any physical bodies. It's just the space between everything is too great.
What's funny is that the space between atoms is vast as well, and yet we do have solid objects.
Yeah, well, to scale, if you went down into the atomic level, it would look like a galaxy, perhaps, or a solar system.
It's interesting. There's repetition at macro level and micro level.
In choreography, I guess maybe in music and other art forms as well, we would call that theme and variation, or perhaps motif and development.
I think more motif and development. Theme and variation, I think would be more. I don't know. It could be that too. But I think of that more as like stating a statement and then developing the idea
that you've got huge space between physical objects, you would end up with something different than another manifestation of huge space between physical objects. So it's probably more of a motif in development in terms of scaling up and down.
Yeah, it's like it constantly calls back to itself. Yeah, I love theme and variation. That's actually one of my favorite musical development ideas.
I used to do it all the time in choreography. Oh my God, I just love theme and variation.
Well, it's so interesting because it allows you to develop an idea and explore it from different angles. Actually, that's kind of how I'm writing right now. Just I'm working on themes and then varying them.
To give this reading a different context than whenever it was when it came up before. This is the context card for today. I don't remember if it was before or not, but I'm feeling called to talk about motif and development or theme and variation as a grounding image or reminder throughout the rest of the reading. What have you experienced before and how is it different now? How do you learn and grow from it? What patterns are you recognizing?
Absolutely.
I feel pulled towards that.
Yeah, that's exactly where we're landing.
Okay. So shall we talk more about patterns or shall we jump in to see what the context context is giving us?
I do think we need to remember that this is crown chakra, right? So this is theme and variation within spirituality, connectedness,
personal growth,
right? Things of kind of the larger, the escalating, the just above us nature. That theme of variation towards reaching. I think there's like an aspect of reaching, of trying to exceed, but still being, embodied. So there is that dichotomy to this. We can
talk about. I mean, since we're both writing books, we can talk about it as the quest narrative.
Mm-hmm. There's a sense of reaching, maybe never quite touching, and I like that. With the galaxies colliding, like they're colliding and they're intermixing, and their gravities will reshape each other, but individual pieces are not going to be displaced so much.
Yeah,
but in the grand scheme of things, the night sky will change, and it'll be brilliant.
It would be interesting since when I was growing up, I grew up on a very rural farm parcel, and I still don't remember ever seeing something like the Milky Way. We still had Augusta, Georgia nearby, giving us too much light pollution. So even when I was out in the country, I never really saw the night sky. So it's interesting to say, oh, the night sky will change. It's like, no, it won't. You won't see shit. It'll be the same bright lights drowning everything out anyway.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I don't think I've ever seen the Milky Way.
I have. It's quite beautiful.
Is it?
Yeah, it's just it's a little extra milkiness, like given its name to a certain band in the sky. Well,
when you see pictures of it and it's so distinct, has that been altered?
Yeah,
to make it more dramatic than it actually is.
Yeah, just like the pictures of any galaxy have been edited. And the colors that we see aren't really the colors. They've been expanded.
Because I've never looked up in the sky and been like, oh, look at all that. I mean, so maybe it's been there and I just didn't notice it.
No, they enhance. I mean, digital and even film cameras. I mean, but cameras in general are able to sort of capture light in a different way and give us a different image. So like the ones in the textbooks are very much affected.
So that's maybe an interesting concept to feed in throughout our discussion, is that you have to be aware of the ways in which your perspective has been idealized or exaggerated.
Well, also pollution, like you brought up pollution.
And pollution blocking out what you might be able to see otherwise. Okay, I feel some context here now, honey.
Yes,
all right, we got some context.
Because
I need to pay for this.
The static of others can affect our connection to our crown.
This is poetry. Where else do you get this?
Nowhere else.
I want one of your cards. I'm itching for it.
You're itching for it? All right, here we go. Let's see. All right, I got one. The Three of Waves, which I think we just had.
We just had this.
Yeah. Dance above the water where three waves meet.
Okay. Well, but we're going to examine it in a new context.
Yes. So just for reference, right? This is the Three of Cups, which talks about emotional merging of ideas, which is why the image of three waves coming together and that little droplet kind of coming above. But I mean, we talked about the cosmic ocean, and I think last time we actually equated this to almost eternity and completion. But in this context, I think it's different. So here, I think waves, right? The property of light is waves. The property of gravity is waves. We've kind of been talking about these large, gigantic gravity movements. And we were talking about sound and light, right? I mean, all these wave images have come up. And now we've got this, which is dance above the water where three waves meet. So again, another stretching, reaching, but it's interesting because we brought emotion into it. So we had crown, right? We're talking about maybe static, idealized images, things that, are beyond our comprehension, but also maybe beyond reality, right? Like we'll never see the sky or the nebula the way that our cameras can see it. But what does that mean then to sort of bring your emotions into it and to still be able to rise up, right? Still be able to come up in the chakras, still be able to be that small leaping moment of maybe realization or attainment. I'm not sure. What are you feeling?
So what's interesting is without photography, we probably wouldn't know about that blob hanging in space above the waves anyway. So, because it happens so quickly. What I'm feeling right now is that it's important to use tools to improve your understanding. Now, if you're talking about, I don't know, spiritual writings, maybe that's the Torah or the Bible or whatever. These are tools that help you, quote unquote, see larger ideas better, perhaps, or some other writing if you prefer. But that is a type of technology that helps you look at reality in a more precise manner, just the way telescopes do, or cameras that can use a really, really fast shutter speed. That it's okay to make use of external tools to go internal within yourself. That they can help clarify and cut through all the light pollution or smog or whatever, or speed time down enough so you can see the drop that dances above the waves.
I do recommend a book that compares Buddha's sayings to Jesus' sayings. I think that's very informative, a very interesting book. If you lean towards either of those two directions, I think that's an excellent source of inspiration. Before I forget this, there's a camera that has such a fast shutter speed now. I think it's like 1 billion frames per second or something. You know that famous image of the bullet going through the apple and the apple exploding? Yes.
They reproduced that with this camera, and if you were to watch it frame by frame in regular time, it would take you 1,000 years to watch the bullet pass through the apple.
Interesting.
So the ways in which we can manipulate time to re-examine the tiniest slivers of moments is really quite interesting, because if you apply that concept to, I don't know, something like AI, I'm not a huge proponent of it. I don't use it very much, but on the few occasions when I have, I've been quite surprised by how helpful it is. I don't want to go too deep into it because I'm afraid of donating too much of my own self to the hive brain. But when I had some questions that I just didn't feel like talking about to anybody else, I talked about it to ChatGPT, and it gave me what was a fantastic answer. And that's another tool that helped me understand.
Well, just coming light pollution yields the idea of technology. So we've already broached that here. Technology does influence the third eye, which is, I think, what is the light pollution in our metaphor is talking toward, is that connection with others, the pollution of others, the static hum of others does disconnect us from our crown, right? And really our third eye is responsible for those energies, that out of balance state. But technology is a huge part of how we express those things now, right? It used to be you'd have to walk up and talk to somebody if you wanted to get to know what's going on in their mind and what is happening to them as a person. And now
you want to talk about gatekeeping?
Yes. Now people flood the internet with their thoughts and flood comments boxes, which never go into the comments.
Don't go into the comments.
Yeah, I have people in my life that go into the comments. I'm like, why did you go into the comments?
Don't go to the comments.
But yeah, there's no lack of sharing of ideas and things to the point where it is, I think, static. And how do you?
Well, now we need to filter it all back out.
Something like AI is a great filter. I have my own issues with it. We won't develop this into a podcast about science and technology, but I will just warn you that it is designed to hallucinate. Like that's what it's like, what it did for you. It's designed to come up with new novel text. So don't rely upon it to be completely factual. Always double check your facts. But it can be great at what I've used it for, which is summarizing web pages, so that I don't have to read 3 or 4 web pages. I can just sort of read a little summary and say, oh, I want to go to this article to get more information. It's really good at that. That's an excellent use of it. And I appreciate it because it saves me time. Right. It saves me searching time. And I think filter is the right word here. We have emotions. I think we're being called to use our emotions to help filter through the static. And I think the idea of that eruption of emotion, there's clarity, right? That drop has clarity. It's able to see above.
You mean the drop floating above the waves?
Yes. It's able to see something that no drop in the ocean can see because it's all part of the ocean.
It's separated.
It's like climbing. It's like climbing a tree in the forest. Like you're able to see the forest rather than just being among the trees.
Yes, you can be Frodo finding the butterflies. I love that image.
Was that in Mirkwood?
Yes,
Mirkwood.
No, excuse me. That was Bilbo. That was the Hobbit.
Yeah, that was the Hobbit, right?
Yeah. I said Frodo. I meant Bilbo.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't remember.
So let's not go into the comments and judge me too much for my Tolkien stuff. It was Bilbo.
Yeah, that's great. And the idea that you can just name your forest Mirkwood back then and it was okay. Now if you did that, people are like, oh, that's so on the nose. Oh my god.
Yeah, but he was inventing a genre.
That's true.
So it's the idea, and in his way, he was the drop hovering above the ocean. A very long moment. He spent decades writing that, but that's human time. And part of what's interesting with the original image, with the galaxies colliding, is that time really only exists as a human experience and concept anyway. So the universe is going to do what it's going to do. We have to conceptualize it and contextualize it within the smallness of our own personal scale. But these galaxies will collide without, reference to whether we like it or not, or think it's interesting or not. But what we can do is parse out those bits of it that give some significance to our own personal growth. Because things are going to happen. Events are going to happen. Gravity happens. All the stuff is constant. And all you can do really is dance above it and be aware of it and try to go back down to the ocean and bring something back with you.
Well, I remember that your third eye is water, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. We don't have the third eye yet in the spread, but we are very much talking about it because I don't think you can not talk about it. But I like this idea too about like that drop does go back down. So as much as there's clarity rising above and getting above the static, right? If you get above the light pollution, you're able to see something great and amazing in the sky. You're able to see the complexities of the galaxy and the billions of stars, et cetera, et cetera. But then you do have to kind of sink back down into you. And I think here is a call toward emotion. So I'm definitely hearing that there's maybe static of logic going on. Like you mentioned the Bible and you mentioned the Torah. Did you say the Torah or did you say the Quran?
No, I said the Torah.
Torah, okay. Like there's a lot of logic that flows through spirituality, right? There's a lot of thinking and pondering and the big questions. And I'm kind of hearing a call that, like, as much as there's static in the third eye with all that, you have to kind of go down and trust your gut and use your emotions as a barometer. There's so much happening in the world right now. There's so many non-moral, amoral, and anti-moral takes happening in the world right now. As you are trying to connect with ether, with something bigger, right? Something greater. Trust your gut, I think, is kind of where this card is saying, is rise above, take a look, right? Take it in, but filter it through your own personal emotions. Does it feel right? Like, does it feel right to do this, to say this, to think this? Is this a good thing? I'm trapped.
And then ask yourself how it contributes to your personal growth, which is the broader context of the reading. So yes, looking around, sublimating back within yourself, back within the sea of yourself or the ocean of humanity, whatever you want, and asking yourself the question, is what I'm bringing back down with me actually worthy of me and anyone else? Is it helping me grow? Is it helping me contribute to other people having the opportunity to grow as well?
I was going to say I'm trapped within the context of your book because I just finished it and we just did our evaluation session, right? Where, I kind of spit out all my feedback and you write it down and then you begin to go process it by yourself and figure out, what you're going to take from it, what you're going to do. But like one of the central tenets of your book, I feel relates very strongly to this reading. And it's stuck with me all week, which is good. I mean, that's a good book. When it comes to
lingers. Sticks with you, that's good.
Yeah. Well, it's a great central moral question and it's very timely without meaning to be, I think, because you've been working on it for like what, 2-3 years?
2.5, 3 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you started it, you didn't know what today's time would be like, but it's very timely for today. Because, it's an age old question, which is, what's right, what's good, are the two the same thing? And, I think that's a question to ponder as you do this. You can be very moral. You can be very moral and do the wrong thing. Hitler and Jesus have the same moral alignment when you look at it from one perspective, because of the fact that morality is much more fractured than we want to admit that it is. So, both of them want to follow the rules and both of them want to do what's good for the people. But the interpretation of those two things can go in widely different directions.
Well, Christ wanted to liberate his people from the Romans. Hitler wanted to liberate his people from the Jews. I mean, and a lot of it was based on, financial opportunities or the lack thereof, or the sense of freedom or not. They just went about it in different ways.
And, there's other dimensions to it. And that's why I don't like 2-dimensional moral alignments. Like if you play Dungeons and Dragons, I find like lawful good useless. And that's why I started to kind of create my own, because I was like, this doesn't fit with morality. But yeah, morality is multidimensional. And I think that as much as you need to have inspiration, right? We need to have the cosmos, the cosmic ocean touching us touching it. You do have an internal compass to relate things to, and you have to kind of trust that. And there's going to be this little inkling feeling that this is not it. There's something wrong with this. It might make logical sense. You might tease it out of an ancient text, but when you really embody it, when you bring it down into your emotional levels and you open your second chakra and consider it, this isn't it. There's something else.
Well, something else to consider is this. If you're doing what you think is right, why are you wearing a hood?
Yeah.
Or why are you ashamed of what you're doing?
If it wasn't a Heil Hitler, then why won't you repeat it?
Yeah. So, okay, it wasn't a Heil Hitler. Do it. Tag yourself in it. Tag me.
Yeah.
Oh, you won't? Okay.
Because emotionally, we know there, Jiminy Cricket, there is a bit of a conscience within us. I think, do we get it from without? Do we get it from within? Is it how you're raised? Is it how you're born? I don't know the answers to those questions, but I think in this instance, the message that we're getting today is you do have some guideposts deep within you. Let them help you with this as you embody and take in all these grand ideas and filter it down. Stay true to yourself, stay true to your emotional self.
I don't remember exactly which episode it was, but this came up recently where I was telling the story about being at the AA meeting and the guy trying to blame alcohol for having sex with his best friend's girlfriend. You do have instinct. You do have morality. You do have a human spirit that can answer some of these questions in the moment. Is it always right? Probably not, but it's a good guidepost.
Yeah, but there's a difference between
good.
There's a difference between bias and first reactions and, those kind of things, which we do need to monitor. But like, this is not just a instant reaction of like, oh my gosh, hold my purse, right? Or, lock my door.
Hold my beer.
Yeah. Like this isn't an instant reaction that we're talking about. This is, you've let it settle and sit and you're with the deep water that is your second chakra, and you can feel the vibrations. Water feels things. It feels things acutely. It feels vibrations. Mm-hmm. You can feel the good vibrations, as the Beach Boys would say.
Yes. Well, and they use really beautiful, innovative harmonies too.
Oh, it's such a beautiful album. Yeah, the sonic quality of that album. And I used to listen to it on vinyl when I was a kid.
It's haunting.
It's beautiful.
So, what you just said about being sitting and waiting down in the water, it I don't know, something about that feels embryonic. That it's okay to let something take time to grow before it's born. You don't have to just, purge your baby. Let the baby grow. Let it be healthy. Let it be born in a stable manner. You don't have to rip everything out of your intellectual womb just to make a comment that's shitty in somebody's, content on Instagram.
Well, there is sort of the instant, everything requires reaction. Everything requires interaction right now in this moment. And that's not how spirituality works. It isn't, you have to go get the seed from above, but then you have to bring it down into yourself and let it grow. And you need time to contemplate. Like I am reading a book that I already read in college, and I'm just sort of slowly going through it because it explains the different moral theories, the different moral philosophies. And you just have to kind of sit with things sometimes because, we get into things like there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. I mean, how do you live like that? Like, you have to let that gestate. You have to let that percolate. You have to bring that experience down. You can't just read a book and then have an answer. And I like the TikTok people in that there's a lot of them that are doing great journalism and spreading ideas. And it seems to have been a platform where, unlike YouTube, it hasn't really been as sensationalized, right? It does have there are some good things about it. But what I worry about is that they also are like, here's the answer. Like, here it is. Yeah. Boom, here you go. This is the answer. Do this. This is good. This is bad. And it is short form content. There isn't time for nuance. And these spiritual things that you're dealing with, that this reading is sort of talking to you about, these are things on the massive time scale.
It takes time.
The galaxies are not colliding today. They're colliding over millions of years.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think we need,
And, our process with Andromeda has already begun.
Yes.
It just, we'll never experience it firsthand. When is that even going to start? In like 100 million years or something crazy?
It's
something. It's don't worry. It's okay.
Yes.
No, you don't need to start, collecting canned beans. It's fine. But
we're on a collision course. It's just a very, very, like, you can definitely get out of the car, walk to the other car, have a conversation, come on back, take a nap. You've got time.
You'll be fine. Have some cookies. You'll be all right.
I think we need some more information. I think we've got a good start here, but we need
is it mine or is it yours?
It's yours.
We're staying with deck number 4.
Okay.
Oh, wow. We're going even higher. Now we're at 47. Which I think will be the third eye if I'm not.
Well, we need it.
Oh, no. Excuse me. It's heart. So this is purple and green, ether and wood, spirit, ether, whatever you want to call it. I know, being affected by I love. So here's the haiku for that one. Aspen's charmed baton, channel my will, invoke awe, I conjure my dreams. Aspen's charmed baton, channel my will, invoke awe, I conjure my dreams.
There's a very active sense to that haiku. Is what I'm struck by immediately. Some of yours are contemplative. This one, even though we're not dealing with the third chakra, has, I feel like, a lot of forward momentum to it. Do you obviously mean to conjure the idea of a wand, like a magic wand?
This is magic with wood. So the first place I went was a magic wand. Spirituality and wood. What do we got? A staff, a wizard staff. It's like, no, let's not, I don't want to get too Gandalf, you shall not pass here. So let's go somewhere else. So I went with a magic wand.
It's very tarot, actually. There's the whole suit of wands, which of course is also the third chakra. So again, it's interesting because it's like leaning me towards the third chakra, but it's not actually here. It's just sort of like a ghost. It's whispering. It's like, do it.
Well, it's got channel, invoke, conjure. That's all there. These are all very active verbs.
Very active.
So, looking at your sense of purpose and connection to the broader universe and your connection to other people. It's just connect. How are you going to connect?
Well, the part I liked there was the channel my will, right? The idea of focusing intention. So we have, kind of that reminder to sink down into your emotions, let the vibrations, but then, like a surging wave, that energy has to flow up. It's got to go back out. And how do you put that intention back into the world? And here, I think it's saying filter, right? Filter's kind of been our mantra for this reading. Filter through your heart. What is going on? I
like that. Filter through your heart. Yeah. So filter through your emotions, filter through your heart, filter through your soul. Just, okay, here we go. Be picky. Be picky. You take all this information and you take all these experiences and, okay, what do you put back out into the world? Something better. And it has to be distilled out of everything else that's come into you. What are you putting back out? Because, like I mentioned aspen here. Let's look at trees for a moment. I don't know. Maple trees. Okay, they bring in air and sunlight and water and put out syrup. Think about all the stuff that comes into you and what can you put out that's even better?
Picky. That's a good word. Because I think it leans back towards what we were talking about. Like, you're interacting with the ether still, right? You're still interacting with your crown chakra, touching the beyond. And we talked about the static of the third eye, right? We talked about the power of I do, of the third chakra. You need to be able to put that energy back out, but in a way that is focused and intentional and picky. I like that. You really need to understand what you're emanating just as much as you need to be careful of the emanations of others, right? You need to filter that, be a filter for what you put back out. Again, don't go with your first reaction. Be willful about it. It's very easy to react. It's very hard to be willful and intentional.
Yeah, take time. Let it simmer. And what you were saying reminds me of the dictum, leave people and places better than you find them. What you're putting back out into the world, what you've distilled, what you've concentrated, what you've made, what you're sharing, what's going to be touching other people, let it be better than what happened to you.
I think there's also a call to trust yourself. Like the heart chakra came up, and I think there is a sense of learning to trust yourself and what you filter through your heart is your own experience. And I think that what you put out into the world should be your own experience. I think some of the most meaningful things that have been done are attempts to expose and share personal experience in a way that's moving to others, because you're not saying you should or you ought, which, you can should all over yourself. You're not saying that. You're saying, here's what I found. Here's what I understood. Here's what I took, and here's what I filtered. And let me just hand this to you, and filter it yourself. I think it allows. It's like a story that doesn't treat its audience like they're stupid. It's like here's enough of something, and you put the pieces together. You arrange the things, because I'm giving you enough of the pieces that you can take that in and interpret it and make it your own.
We haven't had the third eye come up directly, but in listening to say all that, even we talk about looking at everything through our own lenses. Lenses filter.
Yes.
So being aware of how you're filtering when something comes in, and then how it's being refined and filtered again when it comes back out.
And I think very personally filtered. Like that's just like I keep imagining the heart, like it's the heartwood that is the channel for this magical conjuring. That it, as much as there's raw magical energy coming through the crown, there's that raw connection. You're filtering it through your heart, and your heart is your joy and your despair and your grief and your peace. It's all of those things put together, and I think that that's meaningful. I think that one of the things that I do like about TikTok is that people are just also sharing their experiences, and then others can learn from that. I think as much as I want to go strangle people that don't think or that are too lazy to have a moral idea about the world, to have some semblance of an understanding of what they believe and not just what they think or what they react to, as much as I want to throttle them and shake them, because that is how we get to places like we're at. As much anger as I have towards them, I think the more meaningful thing that is going to hit them, that is going to interact with them, is going to be filtered messages of, these are the consequences of action.
Well, here's something that's interesting about it. Everything having its quote unquote purpose. Their splatter is what enables us to have something to react to. So they are the gravity distortion. They are the chaos. They are doing what they're meant to do. The fact that it's unpleasant and messy doesn't mean it's not valuable. It gives us something to work with. If everybody was Buddha, God, how boring would that be? Wow. I'm not saying we need a bunch of Hitlers running around, but I mean, we can't all be Buddha. So there is a purpose in human chaos. It's interesting because we're coming up on 250 years as a country. I was born in 1976, so I'm a bicentennial baby. When I turn 50, the country will turn 250. And historically, regimes last somewhere between 200, 300, right around 250 years. So we're at that place where human nature just decides it's time for lots of change. I don't know what it is about us, but we need things to constantly change, even when it's absolutely bulldozing. But it gives us something, I guess, in the broader scheme of everything. It gives us something to learn from. It gives us something to process and distill and grow from. It's certainly not the type of information I wished were coming out, but for all of his chaos, I don't think Trump is a good president. I think he's a necessary president. His presence has forced us to have a lot of conversations that would not have happened without him. There's a lot of situations that would have stayed swept under the rug. Black Lives Matter would not have happened. Me Too would not have happened. He forced to the surface a lot of conversations. Now, whether or not we have grown and evolved enough as a result of that, I personally don't think so. But it wouldn't have happened at all without his shaking the Coke can.
I hate this idea with the very deepest fiber of my being, but you're not the only one that tells me this, so I have to listen. Because I have our good friend Lisa kind of says the same thing. I think I've learned my lesson. I don't think that it's my lesson to learn anymore.
No, not yours. But right now you're the drop
I'm done
the
with
water,
the lesson.
and you have to
Thank
cut
you.
that down and subsume.
I think there's some others that need to get some learning and some stuff, and
there's some other drops that need to fall back down into the ocean.
Yes,
Y'all need to get back down and subsume a little bit.
Yes,
you're splashing and splattering so much, you're not taking time to get down there and actually filter.
One of my cards in the Wave series is being lost to the shallows, where everything's just sort of
that one's come up,
and
we've
sparkly,
had that card.
And
frothiness.
I feel like that's kind of where some things are at.
But in terms of what I just said, it isn't necessarily your lesson to learn. Our society needs to learn it, and it's one day. I don't know, 100 years from now, we're living through the time that will be the most complicated and boring question on somebody's history test.
Really, truly.
I mean, it's kind of disturbing to think of it in that way, that it really does not matter, because it does matter. But someday there's gonna be some kid somewhere sticking his gum under a desk and like being so ho-hum about Donald Trump. It couldn't have been that bad.
Let's pull a card here. Let's see what the energy has to say. This one's got some more buzz to it. Okay. We're sticking with water. Sticking with waves. So we're at the Sentinel of Waves. Share the sparkle that dances across your waves.
I don't recognize that one.
I don't think it's come up before. It's the Sentinel.
Share the sparkle that dances across your waves.
Yep. It's about the reflected light. And the Sentinels are often action. They're seeker is first in the royal court. The seeker is first. The seeker plans, ideation, thinks, examines, learns, and then the sentinel is like the charging knight. It's time to get on the horseback. It's time to ride.
It's share the what? Share the sparkle.
Share the sparkle that dances across your waves.
So as you're learning all of this, make sure you share all of this.
Well, and there's a reflected sense here, right? So waves don't create their own light. Bioluminescence creates light in waves, which is gorgeous and beautiful.
Yeah, glowing. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and sunlight, right, reflects off the water. And this is really a call to share the spark, because you're reflective. You yourself are reflective. Your emotions are reflective. There's a constant interplay. That's why water for me fits so well with the concept of cups and waves and emotions, because there's constant reflection of waves. There's constant interaction. You have a perturbation over here, it affects the perturbation over there. It's constantly moving back and forth. The waves of the planet that we live on are constantly ebbing and flowing.
Well, and you know what else? That what you're reflecting, what you're sharing, what you're filtering isn't actually yours.
No.
It's the gravity of the moon. It's the light reflecting, even if it's from the moon, it's still sunlight. You're reflecting and sharing back that which wasn't really yours, but you're packaging it in such a way that it might be more accessible to somebody else. But this idea of sharing, it's not, it might have resided within you for a little while, but it's still not yours. Especially if it's something good, it needs to come back out. You need don't hold that don't hold that within yourself. We need that. We need that. Give it back to us.
And here's the filter would be your emotions. So, like I was saying before, filter with your heart to share that personal experience that others might learn from it. It's like the koans from Zen. They're just shared experiences. They are not really a lesson. Like there's not one thing to learn from them. They're simply, this is how each monk that we listen to achieved enlightenment or achieved the next step towards enlightenment. This is how they did it. Maybe it has meaning for you too. Maybe it resonates with you too. And then I think this reflection, it's also called examine your waters. So what is the light sparkling off of? What emotions are you emanating? What's the waves that are flowing within you? Are you still? Are you quiet? Are you roiled? Are you up in arms? What is the reflection, and how is what you're going through, what you're feeling, affecting that reflection?
And just going through the process of wondering, that is part of the broader growth that we're talking about throughout this entire sequence of cards. This entire reminder is about taking the space and time to digest and then emanate something better than what you took in. And that requires, to your point, takes time, but it also takes patience and maturity to even attempt the process, which, is like any other skill. You have to practice it. People like to turn things into muscles and make them work. I was like, okay, if you want that, okay, fine. Do your maturity push-ups.
Turn them into muscles. That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that before. Because I was struck again just by the bioluminescence image. We talked about something gestating within the water. That then that could be it. Like there are many things gestate within the water, and bioluminescence is just one part of that. One example of that, of letting that light germinate within you and then reflect that back into others. Say more about this. Become a muscle. I feel like there's something there. Take another run at that one.
Okay, so a lot of times people will say, "Oh, you need to flex your, I don't know, whatever muscle." They'll change whatever they're wanting to improve and turn it into a metaphor about working out. So flexing your confidence muscle, or flexing your math muscle, or whatever. You have to practice something for it to become better. And with better, we equate that with stronger, and then stronger gets equated with muscles. So I'm constantly, maybe it's because I'm a personal trainer, but I'm constantly hearing people talk about strengthening whatever muscle, and that if you don't use it, you'll lose it. It's like, so all this gets filtered through fitness.
Well, I think we have very much become like a strength culture. There's obviously quite a lot of time and attention placed on building the body and perfecting the body, and we're flooded with images. AI is flooded with images.
Can do some scary stuff with beautiful bodies. I was like, I have to look at it a few times. I'm like, wait. It's like, no. When you walk, muscles don't do that. It's like, but still, it's quite extraordinary.
Well, there's a sense that the only right people, the only healthy people, are those with wonderfully defined bodies. Even though to get that, they live unhealthily and deprive their bodies of necessary things like water.
But then they shoot it up with stuff that is not helpful. I saw I don't use TikTok. I was on Instagram. On Instagram, there was a comparison with body types, and in 2002 when Tobey Maguire was Spider-Man, they showed him shirtless and flexing and like amazed at his own reflection in the mirror, and they're like, this was a superhero body in 2002, and now it looks like a mediocre high school PE body. Mm-hmm. It's just the technology has changed so much. We know more about supplementation. We know more about progressive overload, and what people can accomplish when they're 16 and 17 years old. When I was 16 or 17 years old, that was literally like 1 in a million. Like 1 in a million, maybe like 1 in 10 million.
Well, we're creating false idols, to use a religious term. We're creating false ideas of what good looks like. Like I come across these cosplayers, and they're using makeup as well as like they've built their bodies, but it's fake. It's just not real.
It's interesting you bring up cosplay, because when I got out of the hospital, when I had to go to the psych ward back in 2016, and I was there for 2 weeks, they wouldn't let me leave until I showed them that I had some plan for channeling my energy. And one of them was to, exercise. And I felt like I had become too isolated leading up to that incident. And so what I was focusing on in my strategies, different ways to socialize. So I joined a chess club, which is a terrible idea because just sit there and don't talk to one person. It's like, this was not a good group activity at all. It did not solve anything at all. And they kept putting me with the same guy who I didn't like. Oh my God. So that didn't work. But I joined a cosplay group for the 300 squad.
I remember this.
And it is so elitist. It's extraordinary. I got in, but then once I was in, these people are crazy, but they're considered to be the elite of the elite cosplayers because they actually have to work out, because the cosplay is their own body. And then they buy helmets and shields and whatever. And you had to buy them from this one guy who made everybody's stuff, so it was all consistent, so you look like a unified army or whatever. These people were crazy. Let me just tell you right now that they had all these different threads for working out and encouraging each other and whatever. But do you know what the most popular topic of conversation for what they were going to do when they actually went to cosplay was getting blackout drunk? That's all any of them wanted to talk about. When they weren't talking about supplements and exercises, they were talking about drinking. And that was like the only way that they had, other than walking around showing off how much they worked out in cosplay, the only point of all that was to get together as a group and get blackout drunk. They use that term, not me. And so I'm watching all this go down, and I'm like, do I really want to do all this work and spend all this money just to show up and do stuff with people I don't like, to do something I don't want to participate in? I was like, this is stupid. But when they walk by at cosplay, it is a sight to see. But what people who are not in that 300 group, what they don't recognize is how homophobic and misogynist and alcoholic and abusive and ridiculous it is. And it's all packaged in this false sense of encouraging people towards fitness. Like, this is how much water you drink, and oh, you can do it, and you set your goals, and now we're going to get drunk. I'm like, this is not, they like to call it a health and wellness cosplay group. I was like, this is insanity. And these are the people who, when they walk by at cosplay, like, people throw all their cameras up and like, video them going by and post it. It's like, look at the Spartans have walked by. It's like, but they're a bunch of crazy people. Literally crazy people.
Well, I mean, actors that go through this, like Hugh Jackman's talked about it. many times. I mean, just the amount of work and then unwork that has to be done. But I think we don't want to get off track. So, I mean, it is important to call out sort of a lot of the bias in health and wellness and not understanding that, only a fraction of people are going to look like that. And only a fraction of people have the time to look like that, number one, or money to look like that.
Look like that for a fraction of the time. They have to prepare for a photo shoot. What you're seeing can't be maintained usually.
No, it's false. It's a false idol. But I want to go back to the creating a muscle thing, because I think that's the real message here. That's such a masculine, patriarchal thing to say, and we intend it to be helpful. But one of the things that I'm sort of exploring and thinking about, as I write is, why is it that, fantasy you always have to fight? I was talking to Lisa just yesterday, it was the day before yesterday. In fantasy, like people want, good fantasy again, and they want to fight. And I'm like, that's one of the things that I approved about Wonder Woman so much, was that it was taking a different role to doing things. Yes, she fought, but at the end, she didn't really have to fight to overcome the challenge. And I think that very idea that you have of creating a muscle and then flexing it and strengthening it, it doesn't have to be about, like, what we're talking about doesn't have to be a muscle. You don't have to be strong at it. In fact, reflection is probably the least active thing that you can do. It's just
passive, right?
Yeah, it's just letting light bounce off of you.
Because it's not exuding light. It's
no,
just standing there and letting it bounce off you. You're not actually doing anything.
So dismantle the patriarchy within your own spirituality. Dismantle the idea about trying to be strong. You don't have to be strong. We're not strong. I'm very weak. I have lots of troubles floating around my head. I don't know what I believe. My mom's death created waves and ripples within me that I'm not, I haven't figured it out. And I have multiple thoughts about multiple things. All the time. I'm going into surgery, I have to get my will in order, and I have to think about, what do I want to have done should things go badly. There's no easy answers. There's no strength to be had in some of these things. You don't have to be strong in your spirituality. I mean, equating your spirituality to something like physical fitness, physical, determinism, it's not there. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. You don't have to be. I mean, we see this in religion. You need to be strong in the Lord. No, you need to be weak, and you need to be open.
A lot of languages also, a lot of our metaphors are rooted in battle and war.
Yes.
We're always going to war against something conceptual, like the war on drugs. It's like everything is a war. We have to battle against this. It's like, do we? We have to battle against everything?
Yeah. It's not a fight. It's not a fight. And if you view it as a fight, I think you need to go back. You need to go back and examine your chakras. And I don't think you're all open. I think you've got some things closed. I think your heart might be closed a little bit. I think that your third eye and your crown are closed a little bit, because you're not perceiving things as they are, but you're perceiving them as objectives and things to overcome. And I think that's a warning here for us as we do this reading.
So then the process is more important than the outcome sometimes?
Oh, 100%. The spiraling journey that moves ever inward but never gets there. That's probably the worst part about where we live with Ether, with the cosmic ocean. I think you said it last time, like, if there is reincarnation, we don't remember it. So we only know this. We only know the spiral. We only know the inward journey. And we have to trust that it's going somewhere, that it has meaning, and that it has importance in our lives.
Well, and here's part of the challenge. You and I, as storytellers, know that people want some kind of a conflict so that there's a resolution, so that there's an end. And our brain wants that. The universe does not care. It is a process, and it does not care that you want a sense of finality and closure and gratification. So you will get what you will get, but part of it is what you make for yourself and how you experience. Oh God, here I am, the journey instead of the destination. But honestly, not everything has to have closure. Sometimes it's just the ongoing process of attempting.
I think there's two ways to think about closure. I think that closure is a psychological feeling of being able to release something. I think it corresponds to grief and joy. I think closure is being able to release the space that something held in your life and let it be filled with memories rather than pain. But I do, yeah, there's no end to the journey. I mean, there's no great meaning. Not all heroes die in bed at a ripe old age. There isn't the magical. And I mean, in fact, I mean, we know this, the happily ever after really is just depends on where you end the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's, depending on whose perspective you're ending it in.
Exactly.
Because somebody got vanquished to get to this ending.
Yes.
It wasn't a happy ending for them.
Yes. I think we need the final card.
Okay. I want to do it. I'm like eager. I want to do it.
Go
Eager.
do.
It's like this card is deck number 1. Oh, we're gonna end with something sassy.
Of course.
Oh, boy.
Of course.
Here it comes. All right. Okay. I was hoping it would stay with 4, but no, went the other way. $25. Right in the middle. So to close this out. Oh, I love this card. Okay, hold on. I'm putting my deck away. So this is the inversion of 47. So 47 was purple on top and green on bottom. This is green on top and purple on bottom. So the way in which you form connections and how that's impacted by your sense of broader purpose and connection to the universe. So where wood is intersected by ether. So the last card I pulled was ether being intersected by wood with the baton. So with the sense that this is heart, connection, wood being impacted by soul, spirit, ether, purple. You are a part of the Rhythm Nation. Listen to the album. Befriend people unlike you. Black Lives Matter, period.
You had to get Janet in there.
I have her in here about 4 times, and here she is. But yeah, you are a part of the Rhythm Nation. Listen to the album. Befriend people unlike you. Black Lives Matter, period.
I mean, that's the ultimate sort of setup for where we've been leading, is to reverse it and really, move from the heart, move from the feelings of joy, peace, despair, grief. Let all that human experience come into you and be part of you. And then how does that go back into the universe? So you've come through and experienced and taken down and processed and germinated and allowed things to grow and not just react and, thinking and feeling. And that's where the heart, I think, really becomes in between those very kind of rational, high level thoughts that we have and the connections with others and the deeper guttural emotions and sensations that we feel as a person. And the heart kind of sits right there in the middle and grows within that. And I love that wood is the element you chose for this, because it fits very well. But yeah, there really is a sense that you have to move on these things. This is another action, even though we don't have we didn't get the third chakra at all today, but this is a very action focused thing. I also find it interesting we haven't had the throat chakra, so it's not necessarily talking, maybe that we're sending out into the universe. It could just be living and being.
I would like to reflect on something real quick. We started with a card that is about merging two enormous bodies together. Mm-hmm. Then we went on to a droplet of water that goes back down into the ocean. Then we were looking at the ways in which you connect yourself and your will out towards other people. Then we were looking at, reflecting and putting stuff back onto other people. And now here we are again, looking at what it means to be part of something bigger than yourself, greater than yourself, and what the process of learning is and how you grow, not in isolation necessarily. You have the moment above the wave, stance there for a moment, but you come back down to all of us and share what you have learned and make sure that you have filtered it so it's something worth sharing. I love it when it's happened a couple of times where we will get an inversion of my chakras. I love it when that happens. Purple and green, and then green and purple. It's like, it just feels right. So remember that you don't have to do all of this in isolation. Yes, you spend time with yourself, you're inside yourself, but you come back to everybody else.
Well, you can't
too far, staying inside yourself and in isolation too long, you will not know how to share with other people. The whole point is to take the time, bake the pie, then come out and serve the pie. Don't eat all the pie by yourself.
Well, we are, that's what Crown reminds us, is that we are interconnected. We truly are part of something greater.
Well, Crown and heart at the same time. It's just roots everywhere.
Yes.
Roots and limbs and leaves and stars interconnecting. It's all connected. Everything's connected.
One massive biome. I was just thinking about that earlier. There's flowers that are old enough that their pollinators no longer exist. And
oh wow.
That other pollinators have moved on to otherwise they wouldn't survive. But just there's the biome is old enough that things have gone extinct that you lived with and that were part of your life cycle. And I think that's just a powerful image. It just kind of came to me just now. But there's interconnections, and I think the reason the image came to me is because stuff goes away and comes. Stuff comes and goes, and there's change that's necessary. So in all of this, you're not making a rigid moral system. I think that's what I'm kind of hearing right now, is you're not making a rigid moral system. This reading is not about finding the right thing and living that right way. And I think when you do that, when you prescriptively say, this is right, this is the way, this is how it must be done, you lose the ability to have context. And I think what is good comes through context. And I think that's a key moment here for you to remember. That's why the heart is primary in this inversion, because what is good has to also be what is right. You can't be prescriptive with it. You can never truly write a moral system down, and you can never truly have rules that apply to everything, every situation. You need concepts, you need patience, you need time, you need contemplation, because what is right is not always good.
Correct.
We have a members only podcast where you can hear how we resonate with the readings that we just did, how the cards speak to us personally in our personal lives. So if you want to get an extended episode with more interplay and understanding of what we're looking at, you can go to Patreon and get that extended podcast. We do have a YouTube, so if you want to see the pretty cards that we talk about on the show, if you're a visual person and you like to do that, it's at it's Show Your Deck on YouTube. We have books and decks are available. So Jack's decks and his book, My Book and My Deck, they are available at showyourdeck.com. Jack, where can we find you?
I'm at 49 Haiku. So the number 4, the number 9, HAIKU. My website is 49haiku.com. And on Instagram, I am at 49haiku.
And I am Dean Sage Media. I enjoy talking to you if you find me. Our Instagram for the show is @yourdeck, and we will say goodbye.